Now to the urgent search for answers in the death of Nolan Wells.
This is a horrifying story because our hearts go out to the family of 18-year-old Nolan.
What if the one piece of evidence everyone has been waiting for has finally surfaced? Why would a video appear only after a nationwide search had already ended? And if this footage really captures Nolan Wells before he vanished, what has everyone missed? Police are now examining newly surfaced evidence tied to Nolan Wells' murder, including what may be the last known video recorded before he disappeared. The footage has triggered intense speculation across the internet, but speculation isn't the same as proof. So what does the video actually reveal? What have investigators confirmed? And which details are being overlooked, while millions focus on the wrong things? In this documentary, we're going beyond the headlines, breaking down the timeline, the newly surfaced evidence, and the facts investigators are quietly piecing together. By the end, you'll understand why this latest development could change everything, and why the real story is far more unsettling than most people realize. A video appears on social media. People on a beach, voices laughing, waves rolling in the background. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. Just another holiday weekend clip from the Gulf Coast. Within days, millions of people watch it, share it, scroll past it. None of them know what they're seeing. None of them realize that somewhere in those frames, 18-year-old Nolan Wells may be living his final hours. The video spreads across the internet before anyone makes the connection, before his name becomes a headline, before investigators even know the footage exists. By the time authorities find it, the clip has already been viewed and debated by countless strangers who have no idea they might be watching the last moments of a young man's life. Nolan Wells vanished from Horn Island during a holiday weekend. Days later, his body was pulled from the water near the same stretch of shoreline. How he died remains unclear. What happened during his final hours remains unknown. And this video, posted innocently by someone who didn't recognize its significance, might be the only window into those lost moments. But investigators can't confirm what it shows. They can't verify when it was filmed, or who appears in its frames. They can't even say with certainty whether Nolan is actually in the footage at all. Somewhere in this clip that millions have already seen, there might be answers to questions his family has been desperate to answer since the moment he disappeared. If you're interested in cases where the smallest details can change everything, make sure you're subscribed to Reopened Crime Scenes. Now let's talk about what investigators know, what they're trying to confirm, and why this footage has become the center of a national investigation. The clip first surfaces on social media days before anyone connects it to Nolan's case. Users share it casually the way people share any beach video. No indication anything is wrong. No hint of tragedy. Only after Nolan's body is found, and his family begins pleading for information about his final movements, does someone recognize a possible link. That's when the footage transforms from random content into potential evidence. Investigators pull the clip and begin examining it frame by frame. When was this recorded? Where exactly on Horn Island? Who filmed it? Most importantly, is Nolan Wells visible anywhere in this video? They haven't answered any of these questions publicly. Digital forensics teams reportedly examine metadata in the file, searching for timestamps or location data that might confirm whether the footage came from Horn Island during the hours Nolan was there. But videos uploaded to social media often lose crucial data. Compression strips away details. Re-uploads erase information. What might have started as forensically rich evidence can become nearly impossible to verify. Meanwhile, the public doesn't wait. Millions study the clip on their own. They slow it down frame by frame. They zoom into faces. They analyze clothing, boats, stretches of shoreline that might match where searchers eventually found Nolan. Comment sections explode with theories. Some insist they see Nolan among friends near the water. Others claim they recognize voices. Users point to specific timestamps, convinced they've identified the moment something went wrong. None of these claims are verified, but they spread as quickly as official updates, creating a parallel investigation happening entirely online. Detectives warn against jumping to conclusions. They stress the footage remains unverified, but warnings don't slow speculation. People keep sharing, keep analyzing, unwilling to wait for answers that might take months. This isn't the first time unrelated content has been falsely linked to Nolan's case. Earlier, during the search, other photos and videos circulated online, wrongly connected to his disappearance. Investigators had to publicly correct those rumors. Now they're caught in the same cycle. The public wants answers immediately. Investigators need time to verify before making statements they might retract. And in the middle sits Nolan's family, waiting. For Christine Wansley, Nolan's mother, this video brings both hope and unbearable pain. Hope, because any evidence might explain what happened during those unaccounted hours. Pain, because every headline, every viral clip, forces her to relive the worst moments over and over. During the search, she pleaded for anyone who visited Horn Island that weekend to come forward. She begged for photos, videos, anything that might help piece together Nolan's final movements. She described the waiting as unbearable. Now footage has surfaced, but still no confirmation of what it shows. No clarity, just more questions. Even after Nolan was identified and buried, Christine continues pushing for transparency. She needs to understand what happened to her son. She's not alone in that demand. Attorney Ben Crump, one of the nation's most prominent civil rights lawyers, now represents the Wells family. His involvement signals this case has moved beyond local news. It suggests the family isn't satisfied with the investigation's pace or completeness. Civil rights leader Al Sharpton has joined them as well, standing beside the family during public statements, helping organize press conferences that draw national reporters to this small Gulf Coast community. Together they've transformed what began as local tragedy into something the entire country is watching. Their message is clear. Nolan's family will not quietly accept silence from officials. Investigators are working through more than viral videos. Phone records, boat schedules, witness statements, photos from that day, all under review. Each piece, a potential part of a puzzle that doesn't yet form a complete picture. Coroner Bruce Lind confirmed Nolan's identity through dental records after his body was recovered. That confirmation closed one agonizing chapter, but opened countless others. An autopsy has been completed. Results haven't been released. Toxicology testing was ordered. Those results are pending. Sheriff John Ledbetter stated publicly, "There's currently no indication drugs or alcohol played any role in Nolan's death." But he added that toxicology results, once completed, could change or confirm that assessment. In other words, investigators don't know yet. Not definitively. The search involved massive coordination. Local sheriff's deputies, marine resource officers, park service rangers, Coast Guard crews, and volunteers like the United Cajun Navy all participated. Command posts were set up. Search grids covered miles. That same level of resources has shifted toward reviewing evidence, including this newly surfaced clip. But cases like this don't resolve quickly. Footage alone rarely tells complete stories. Context matters. Timing matters. Location matters. Without knowing precisely when or where this video was recorded, its meaning remains uncertain, no matter how convincing it looks online. Legal experts warn that viral footage often seems groundbreaking, only for investigators to later confirm it showed unrelated events entirely. They caution against placing too much hope in single clips. But hope is powerful for families desperate for closure. Every possible clue offers something worth examining, even when odds favor disappointment. For those closest to Nolan, the wait continues. Some refuse to watch the footage. It's too painful, regardless of what it might prove. Others watch repeatedly, searching every frame for something recognizable, something that belongs unmistakably to Nolan. No one among them claims certainty. Before we can understand why this footage matters so much, we need to understand who Nolan Wells was before any of this happened. Nolan grew up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a small Gulf Coast city of around 19,000 people. He was a standout athlete, known throughout his community for both talent and character. He graduated from Ocean Springs High School in 2025, after years competing as a football player. Over his junior and senior seasons, he caught 63 receptions for 724 yards and 10 touchdowns, earning all-region honors twice. But numbers don't capture what people remember most. Coaches describe someone who never complained about unglamorous work, blocking for teammates, helping younger players, staying humble. Teammates remember him as someone whose presence made everyone better, respectful, encouraging, the kind of person who lifted others when they struggled. Teachers recall a student who was attentive, hard-working, eager to help classmates. His head coach, Jake Brownlett, said losing Nolan devastated their entire program. He called him exactly the type of son, teammate, and friend every coach dreams of guiding. After graduation, Nolan signed to continue football at Southwest Mississippi Community College. He spoke about how meaningful it was sharing that next chapter, with close friends joining him there. At Southwest, he became known the same way. Character first, statistics second. His mother, Christine, describes her son simply. Nolan never met strangers. He loved everybody completely. He wanted nothing more than peace between people. That's who Nolan Wells was. That's who his family lost. That's who investigators are trying to get answers for. And that's why every second of that video, every possible clue, every unanswered question carries so much weight. This investigation is far from over. Toxicology results are pending. The video remains unverified, and Nolan's family is still waiting for answers that might finally bring closure. We'll continue following this case as new information emerges. If you want to stay updated, make sure you're subscribed to Reopened Crime Scenes and hit the notification bell. Because in cases like this, the truth often hides in details no one noticed at first. And sometimes the answers everyone's searching for were there all along, waiting to be seen. Nolan Wells left his phone behind. When he walked away from his friends that 4th of July afternoon, the one device that could have tracked his movements, recorded what happened, or called for help stayed in someone else's hands. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, he'd already vanished into 14 miles of uninhabited wilderness surrounded by open water. No cell service, no emergency responders, no way to reach him. And that single detail, his phone staying behind while he went somewhere else, would become one of the biggest obstacles investigators face trying to understand his final hours. Because without that phone, there's no GPS data, no timeline, no digital footprint showing where he went or what happened after he separated from the group. Just questions that grow more urgent with every hour he stays missing. But to understand why Nolan's disappearance becomes so difficult to solve, we need to understand where this happened. And more importantly, why that location makes everything exponentially more complicated. Horn Island sits several miles off the Mississippi coast, stretching 14 miles long, but measuring less than 1 mile wide at its broadest point. It's a barrier island, accessible only by boat, with no roads connecting it to the mainland. No bridges, no infrastructure, no way to reach it except across open water. For residents along Mississippi's Gulf Coast, visiting Horn Island during summer represents normal tradition. Families boat out during weekends. Friends celebrate holidays on its beaches. Teenagers spend afternoons swimming in waters that look calm and inviting beneath the summer sun. July 4th brings especially heavy crowds. Dozens of boats, sometimes hundreds, anchor near the island's northwestern tip, where calmer waters make it popular for holiday gatherings. That's where Nolan and his friends go to celebrate Independence Day, in 2026. Nothing about the trip seems unusual beforehand. Nothing suggests anyone should worry about safety or conditions. It's just another 4th of July weekend. Another boat trip toward beaches, where they've spent countless summer days before. Nobody imagines this particular trip becoming anything different. If you're finding this case as compelling as we are, please subscribe to Reopened Crime Scenes and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part. Now let's talk about what makes Horn Island such a challenging environment for both celebration and investigation. Congress designated most of Horn Island as protected wilderness back in 1978, preserving its beaches, dunes, and forests from any development. Today, the island remains completely uninhabited, except for one small ranger station positioned near its center. No residents live here permanently. No buildings offer shelter. No facilities provide fresh water or medical assistance. Visitors who camp overnight must carry everything they need because nothing gets provided on the island itself. Wildlife protection remains central to Horn Island's purpose. Migratory birds, nesting sea turtles, and numerous native species depend on this undeveloped stretch. Officials carefully protect that wilderness despite growing visitor numbers every year. But that same remoteness that makes the island beautiful also makes it dangerous. There are no cell towers nearby. Cellular service disappears entirely across most of the island. Anyone needing help must rely on whoever happens to be nearby because professional emergency services sit miles away across open water. There are no lifeguards patrolling these beaches, no paramedics stationed nearby, no quick response if something goes wrong. And during holiday weekends, despite crowds of people celebrating together, that isolation remains absolute. Help doesn't arrive in minutes, like it might on mainland beaches. It requires boats, fuel, favorable weather, and considerable travel time before rescue operations can even begin properly. For families whose loved ones go missing near Horn Island, that distance introduces unbearable helplessness. Knowing someone might be stranded, injured, or worse, across water inaccessible by car or ambulance intensifies already devastating circumstances. The island's environment introduces additional risks beyond simple remoteness. Currents surrounding Horn Island shift unpredictably. Marine safety experts familiar with these waters describe conditions as generally manageable during calm weather, yet capable of becoming dangerous quickly when tides, wind patterns, or weather changes. Shallow sandbars extend outward from the beaches, creating an illusion of safety close to shore. But deeper channels and stronger currents often sit just beyond those sandbars, catching swimmers off guard without warning. Search personnel involved in Nolan's case later described these waters as particularly challenging for locating anyone missing. Currents can move objects, including people, considerable distances within hours, making recovery efforts significantly harder. Summer heat across Mississippi's Gulf Coast regularly reaches extreme levels during July, especially combined with high humidity common throughout the region. Investigators later consider heat exposure among several factors potentially relevant to understanding what happened during Nolan's missing hours. Everything about Horn Island's geography works against quick answers. When someone goes missing here, searchers can't simply drive to the location. Multiple agencies must coordinate, launching vessels from mainland marinas, traveling across open water, then systematically covering miles of shoreline and surrounding channels. Command posts get established on shore, often near boat launches like Lake Mars in Ocean Springs. From there, coordinators direct vessels, aircraft, and personnel outward toward the island, managing logistics across considerable distance, separating mainland resources from actual search areas. Helicopters and drones sometimes supplement water-based searches, offering aerial perspective across shoreline and shallow waters difficult to cover entirely by boat. But even then, weather, glare, and vegetation across the island's interior complicate visibility considerably. Evidence collection near Horn Island introduces unique challenges too. Unlike typical scenes preserved easily on shore, potential evidence scattered across beaches, shallow waters, or deeper channels risks disappearing quickly through tides, currents, or simply passing time before investigators arrive properly equipped. Divers assist searching underwater, though visibility often remains poor depending on sediment, weather, and depth. Recovering items lost in these waters becomes considerably harder compared to searching dry land elsewhere. Then there's the witness problem. During holiday weekends, hundreds of people might visit Horn Island, but they're all temporary. They arrive briefly, celebrate for a few hours, then return to mainland communities scattered across several counties. Nobody maintains permanent presence on the island capable of providing continuous observation. Nobody lives there who might notice something unusual or remember specific details days later. Locating witnesses after the fact requires extensive public outreach. Investigators must appeal for anyone present during those specific hours to come forward with photographs, videos, or recollections potentially useful toward reconstructing what occurred. That's exactly what officials do following Nolan's disappearance, publicly requesting anyone present near Horn Island that 4th of July weekend share anything that might help. But identifying, locating, and interviewing everyone who was there remains logistically difficult given how quickly holiday crowds disperse afterward. This creates a paradox. Hundreds of people present, yet investigators struggle finding anyone who witnessed crucial moments. Crowded environment, yet functionally isolated when something goes wrong. Every factor compounds the others. The remoteness means delayed response times. The lack of cell service means communication gaps. The transient crowds mean witness difficulties. The unpredictable currents mean evidence can disappear. The extreme heat adds physiological risks. And Nolan's phone staying behind means one of the most valuable sources of information, GPS data, timestamps, communication records, simply doesn't exist. Understanding all these complications helps explain why his disappearance creates such significant challenges from the earliest moments forward. It's not that investigators lack resources or commitment. Multiple agencies respond. Coast Guard, crews search, volunteers assist. Helicopters provide aerial coverage. Every available tool gets deployed. But they're working against an environment that doesn't cooperate. An island that shifts with every tide. Waters that move evidence miles from where it started. Witnesses who've already gone home. And a young man whose last known movements remain unclear because the device that could have tracked them stayed behind on a boat anchored offshore. Nothing about Horn Island itself caused what happened to Nolan Wells. The island is simply wilderness, neither good nor bad, just remote and unforgiving. But everything about its isolation, unpredictability, and challenging conditions shaped how events unfolded that day, how quickly help could arrive, and how thoroughly investigators could reconstruct the truth afterward. Search teams eventually find Nolan days later near the island's shoreline. But the questions surrounding those missing hours between when he was last seen and when his body was recovered remain difficult to answer definitively. The investigation continues. Toxicology results are still pending. The video footage from Part 1 remains under review. Witnesses continue coming forward with fragments of information that might help complete the timeline. We'll continue following this case as more details emerge. Make sure you're subscribed to Reopened Crime Scenes so you don't miss Part 3, where we'll examine what investigators have pieced together about Nolan's final hours and the questions that still remain unanswered. Because understanding where this happened and why that matters is only the beginning. What actually occurred during those hours on July 4th? How Nolan went from celebrating with friends to vanishing without anyone noticing immediately, and why certain details still don't make sense. Those answers are still being uncovered. And some of them might change everything we think we know about that day.